Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first panel of this conference on legal, social, and political aspects in using AI in design. My name is Shenkar. I'm a director of Institute for Digital Economy and also serves as Czech National Coordinator for AI Centers. And I'm really thrilled to be with you on this very special day. Many of us, I believe, is sci-fi fans, and today we all remember the masterpiece, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Today is the Taos Day, and I believe that of course, the AI is not a fiction anymore. It's much more about the science, and we are asking the real questions, as Vladan correctly pointed out. We would need a huge map to cover all the issues, especially in our topic of our panel. But I'm very happy that we have two distinguished speakers focusing on, let me say, the most important aspects of the AI ethics and policy. First, we have Mushon Aviv, focusing on the very important question of the AI as the black box. Then we will have Sarah Pagliaccio, talking about the gender and racial bias of AI, very current issue. And I believe in let's say 40 minutes we will have like very fruitful discussion. So without any more delay, I would like to invite Mushon to give us his first lecture. Mushon, please.
The reason you weren't answering my question is because I was muted, but I was asking, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. I'm very excited to be a part of this very interesting conference, and specifically speaking after Vladan, I think there will be a lot of connections between the talk, because if Vladan has been speaking about many aspects of materiality that are lacking, I'll try to focus on the historical aspects that are maybe lacking in our perspective on AI and machine learning, and specifically on the body, on the role of the body within these so-called non-biological systems. So the work is the talk is going to center around the artwork, The Normalizing Machine, which is an experiment in machine learning and artificial prejudice, and would also I'll start with talking about the artwork and the history behind it. I'll continue with discussing the potential, if at all, of opting out of these normalizations. And in the last part, I'll actually do a bit of a behind the scenes of showing work in progress of the next iteration of this work. So I'll start with the artwork and its history. This is a piece I've started working on in 2012, and it went through a couple of iterations since then. I have a short video where I present this, which I think would do the best work of presenting the current state of the work. So here we go. The normalizing machine is presented as a scientific experiment. We're trying to teach machines, how does a normal person look like?
Machines only know normal. If it's not normal, it's a deviation from the norm. For us, we actually work the other way around. We identify when someone is abnormal. Participants are asked to step in front of a camera, and then they're presented with two portraits. They're asked to point at the one that looks more normal. That portrait stays, and then the next one is entered in, 5 rounds like that. At the end, they have to compare between themselves and the most normal portrait. And after they do that, the image is added to this wall. The machine creates categorization of different segments of the face, the eyes, the ears, the nose, and it tries to understand what is a normal nose, what are normal eyes, what are normal ears. It was important for me to make a physical interaction because we have a body. Our eyes are within our body. When we are looking, we're also being looked at. And when we are analyzing, others are analyzing us as well. This is very different than computer vision. Computer vision is vision without body. And that really changes the whole idea of vision and communication. In the 19th century, the police in France started to use photography to document criminals. But then when they would arrest someone, they wouldn't know if he is who he says he is. Alphonse Bertillon was a French police officer and forensics pioneer, and he invented the mugshot, that picture that we all recognize as the picture of criminality. He also created this table, which he called le portrait parlé, the speaking portrait. If the person would not speak, their face would speak. He categorized it, so if this person has this kind of nose or chin or whatever, you look for them in this folder. For him, it was an indexing system. It was replaced a few years later by the fingerprint, but the people who actually continued using it was the eugenics movement and later the Nazis to try to identify the perfect human and to prevent people who are not perfect from recreating. So they took natural selection and Darwinism as a prescription rather than an analysis. This whole thing went underground after World War II, and now we're seeing this come back through machine learning and face recognition and computer vision. So I wanted to put this whole conversation about algorithms in a historical context. How do we actually deal with the idea of normality? How do we actually categorize and being categorized back? How does that change when we're changing to different technologies that look at us differently and we can't look back at them?
Okay, so that was a bit of the background and something about the work itself, the installation. But when I'm speaking about normalization, and obviously I'm looking at the normalization of the face and the history of the normalization of the face, but not only the normalization that we do on a daily basis when we look at faces and when we judge faces, but the normalization that is at the core of everything in this kind of explosion of statistics that is called AI. And this quote from Conilin is interesting. The abnormal, while logically second, is existentially first, which means that, like, logically we think about something that is normal and then about something that is abnormal. But the way we actually experience it is that we identify the abnormal first, and that's something that was embedded within the work, because when you need to choose from two and you're asked to point at the one that is normal, what you're actually doing is you're pointing at the abnormal by not pointing at them. If that makes sense. One of the interesting things that happened when the work was first presented in Jerusalem, we wanted to translate the work to 3 languages, to present it in Hebrew, English, and Arabic. Now, the word in Hebrew is normali, which is taken directly from the word normal, as it's used in English. But then with Arabic, it was interesting, and I asked a bit, and I got some recommendations for words, and then but none of them sounded right. So I was looking to translate normal.
طبيعي.
So it's tabi'i, right?
Naturally.
Tabi'i, and when I translate the same word back using AI, it comes back as naturally. So I was like, how come there's no actual word for natural for normal in Arabic? Why is it using the same space as natural or regular and so on? And I digged a bit deeper at the etymology of the word, and apparently normal, which is like the most normal word, is very new, and the sense of normal person or thing is actually just more than 100 years old. So we haven't been speaking about people as normal for a very long time. It's a very new, very Enlightenment and then a modernist idea of pointing at the normal beyond the context of a scientific phenomena and more as a social phenomenon. So this sipping of the scientific terminology into the social language is interesting in that sense. Now, we had a lot of people participate, and we're really thankful for everybody who get into the installation and participates. But then every now and then we get this one, right? The people who don't want to participate, and then that's very interesting. And if I have the chance, I go and ask, why did you not, try it out? And said, no, I don't want to be a part of this. And this is probably the best response to this work, to not want to be a part of it. But it begs a very interesting question, like, can we not be a part of it? Can we opt out of these types of normalization systems? Like, if we're using apps that are kind of actively asking us to normalize, maybe we can choose not to use them. We meet them everywhere, right? But at the same time, liking is normalizing, doesn't, like, taking pictures and presenting yourself in a certain light is normalizing. And even swiping a page is normalizing. You're creating data that is creating a certain normal way of action, and then an abnormal by reference to that normality. So for statistics first defines the normal and then points at the abnormal. So if we look at it historically, the system went like this. We had subjects. The subjects would be captured by the police in that case, turned into data, datified, and then that data is added into a data set. The data set then has the affordance of identification on one hand and of categorization on the other hand. And that's another important thing. Bertillon didn't try to create a categorization system. He tried to create an identification system. But the way it was used was actually for categorization, and from that point also for building a model. What would be a perfect human, right? That model is also the basis of further analysis, and that analysis feeds back into the model. all of that leads to not only talking about normalization, but using it. It's the basis for action, right? To decide whether someone should be ostracized from society, for example. And when we look at the system today, we have subjects, we have captured, and the way the capture works is very, very different, and we'll expand on that soon. It's datafied. The data gets into a data set. Again, we have this amazing affordance of identification, right? Like, what would we do if we couldn't have opened our phones with our faces? But at the same time, also categorization, which provides the option for models that are the basis for analysis that feeds the model back, and then it leads to action. That action can be the question if someone deserves a parole. It could be the question if someone should be hired for a job, or should get an insurance or a loan, or really every aspect of our life that is slightly harder for us to take our own authority on. We kind of offset to algorithms. And then we can actually identify bias in every step of the way, right? But every point, like Vladan talked about, like where in this map do you want to address ethics? Like where in this map do you want to address bias? And to use a quote from Kate Crawford, who also collaborated with Vladan on his work, these tools are dangerous when they fail and harmful when they work. So it's actually not only a matter of fixing them. So and she suggests that rather than using the framework of debiasing, we should actually go into a framework of justice, which gets back to the mushy, complicated issues of how do we actually deal with, good old, the messy human processes of deciding what is justice and how do we address it. And in a way, I think one of the things that makes me very excited about the kind of conversations that we have around so-called AI is that it has to push us back there. It has to push us back to how do we create these systems, and how do they spill beyond the technical back to the social. So for the last part, I want to talk about the new iteration of the work, which would be called normalizing. That would also be the URL, even though there's nothing there right now. It would launched in September. And I'll show you a bit of the behind the scenes. So a lot of us have lost a lot in this pandemic year, but every now and then there's an opportunity. And when the Science Gallery in Dublin contacted me about the normalizing machine, they wanted to present it, and they said we can't open the exhibition space yet, but what about porting the work to the web? And I told them, well, basically it's the technology is completely different. That would be a completely different work. And they said, yes, would you be interested? And I said, yes. I actually, as a designer, I always had this kind of feeling about the installation that it just doesn't get to a wide enough audience. Like there is something there that I want. I want to expand the conversation beyond the gallery audience. So that was a great opportunity, which I'm working on now. And then the main points that I wanted to maintain and maybe embolden in this iteration of the work is, first of all, to expose the biopolitics of the black box, as in how our bodies are very much present in the politics of data and algorithms. So I wanted to make sure that even though you're not physically within the installation with your body very present, to try to maintain the presence of the body there. The second thing is to echo the history of physiognomy in its present. So physiognomy as the art and the pseudoscience of judging a book by its cover. And then the third is to reflect on our daily normalization, the type of that we constantly take part in. So indeed, the installation itself was very physical. It created these opportunities where people point in ways that create a lot of historical references, right? Like, and then this idea that the data is around you and your body is there is something that I wanted to make sure that is not minimized. And I went back to the history of these Bertillonage, the system that Bertillon built and the tools that it built to quantify the face, to quantify the body, and the way it was used, the kind of politics of someone measuring someone else. I wanted that measurement to not disappear, because even in this case, where we can see that this person did not want their picture to be taken. The police officer had to hold them tight in front of the camera. That is not something that we have right now. Today the camera is transparent. Like we don't see it. We don't have these hands that show us the power relations. So all of these are mock-ups. So all of it is going to change, but it does show like a bit of the design process. And I want there to be a structure that you need to shove your face into, right? There's something, it demands you to be within the frame, right? So that would be the beginning of the process. It's as you can see, it's going to be mobile first. And then the process of normalization is actually going to echo a bit of that interaction, the swipe right, swipe left. So we can see here that I'm going to present segments of the face and then ask you to choose which one of them is more normal. And the idea is that the interaction would be fast enough and kind of even slightly fun. It will be beyond being kind of weird, that you would get into that loop of being a part of that system. So the last part is about the output. So in the output, Bertillon would create these arrest cards, and one of these arrest cards is, as you can see, it's not filled with data points because this one is actually from Francis Galton. So Francis Galton was the founder of the eugenics movement and another pioneer of photography. Actually, he was very interested in what Bertillon did, and because he developed another statistic form of photography, which is called the composite portrait. He would take slow exposure photographs of different people, trying to understand what is the average face. So you could see this is how an officer should look like, right? Because all of these are officers, and if we have like the statistical image of the officer, then that's kind of these are the officers we should look for. By the way, this is how AI works with other jobs, not only officers now. So we have the history of quantifying the face, actually talking about the face through numbers, and we have the present of that practice of really looking at facial landmarks and quantifying the face, trying to understand like what can we learn from the face about what's within the identity of that person. We get back to Bertillon's portrait parlé, and what we have today the Disney visualization. So this is a very popular way of visualizing neural networks in a way that talks about similarity. So this is actually a network diagram, but then rendered as in 2D. The faces that are similar are close. The more the faces are further from each other, the more difference between them. I'm about to conclude. So in this mockup, this is the card that you would get, and then the card, as you can see, has the composite. So what is the average face that looks like you? What kind of what is the normality rate that you get? What is the normality of the composite? An option to delete your account, which would be very interesting. I think that would be the best interaction with the work. And then a zoom out into a T-SNE. So the thicker the frame, the more normal the participant. And then we can try to see how does the AI look at similarity, and then how does it correspond with the way we pointed normality. So to conclude, Mark Twain said that history does not repeat itself, but it rhymes. I think technology doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And to a large degree, design, and as we can see specifically with design patterns, have been repeating themselves with the way we use them today. Maybe we can use the design patterns to identify patterns, not only patterns for what we don't want to see in society, but also remember that we stopped eugenics in the past. We stopped these processes, we can stop them again. So thank you. Normalizing is coming in September, and thank you very much.
Mushon, thank you very much indeed for a truly remarkable presentation. You reminded me of my son in the photo holding the head, and my son is just a year old, so you really need to hold his head, for instance, for X-ray. So I hope that in the near future we won't need this either. But just to say that that there are always two sides, as you correctly pointed out.